Alright, welcome guys to Game 2 between Dreadpiratelynx and Moosemcd. I'm your caster Jess, and happy to bring this game to you. So, we're going to see this time Hospiroid Stronger Together versus Criminal Gabriel Santiago. And our corp has started with some cheap ice, Enigma Victor, Wall Static, Biotic Labor, showing me he's going to want a fast advance something possibly. Priority Requisition. This is a okay starting hand. No economy, but good enough ice that I'd probably keep it. He's going to opt to mulligan, though. Meanwhile, our runner has started with an Armitage, Forged, Inside Job, a Lemuria Codecracker, so that's his expose, and a Fem. I think this is a pretty good starting hand, and I would keep it. Our corp has mulliganed into a different hand, so he's using Shipment from Miramorph, and I actually like this card. He's also got a Corporate Troubleshooter as his trap, sees a Janus, and an Eli. Note this is before Creation and Control, so there's no Bioroid efficiency research here for that Janus. And sure enough, our runner is going to keep that hand. I think it's a good play. Good events, he's got economy, and a great breaker to start with. We'll get underway. Definitely like Eli. I think the strongest corporation card to come at the end of the Genesis cycle. And he sees an Ichi. So this is kind of a tough spot for the corp. I want to put that Ichi somewhere where it can do some damage. I actually like putting that first Ichi when you know you can't really res it and there's not much you can do with it on archives, especially versus criminal. They like sneak door, and putting an Ichi on archives guarantees that if they do try to sneak door, then those trash program subroutines will actually be put to use, forcing them to either click through them or take the hit. Also, it's nice to have that Ichi on a remote or on another key server where you know it can do some damage, but early game as your first piece of ice, it's not doing a lot for you. So what you could do here is actually Shipment, and I think he's going to. I think Shipment from Miramorph is a great card, but I like it more in core Hospiroid, because with them, you're essentially paying 0 to install 3 times. It's good click efficiency, and clicks are something the corp always seems to need more of. Based on what he's targeting right now, it seems like he's only interested in installing 2 cards. But I think that Janus could be put to good use somewhere else. If nothing else, then using it to bluff is always worthwhile. And there he goes. I think he will do it after all. So this is actually not so bad. So think about it. With Shipment from Miramorph, you get 3 installs, then you can credit, leaving you at 6 credits, and a classic starting turn for the corp is often install ice R&D, install ice HQ, take credit, leaving you with 6 credits and 2 ice down. With this, he's got essentially the same thing, but he's got an extra card on the table as far as ice is concerned, and a smaller hand, so that he doesn't have to worry about discarding later if he draws into something. And so let's see how he arranges it. He puts the Janus on a remote, the Eli in front of the hand, and the Ichi on R&D. I like this. The Eli on HQ I think was something he had to do. And the Ichi on R&D is making the best of a bad situation. The Janus on the remote, well, that might actually do something for him later on. Now, of course, this will make it more expensive for him to put real end-the-run ice on that remote later, but for now it'll do. Fortunately, he's got no agendas in hand, so even if Gabe runs HQ click 1 and clicks through that Eli, he won't lose too much. Getting the Corporate Troubleshooter trashed would be unfortunate, but you can't win them all. We'll see what our runner decides to do, though. With a hand like this, I'd like to see a Forged Activation Orders. Using it on the HQ ice is, I think, a strong play. Knowing what's coming at you as Gabe is important. Now that said, face checking isn't bad either. because early game, really, the only thing that can hurt you is the Neural Katana. And using the Forged on the HQ ice, well, he would pay for it, and then you're not getting anywhere. I think Forged is at its best when you're actually trashing ice with it. He's going to opt to put down the Code Cracker first, and then he'll run HQ using an inside job. I don't particularly like this play. He's paying 2 credits to gain 2 credits and bypassing the ice. Not going to get a lot of information out of this. It's kind of a crapshoot, and he still doesn't know what's there in front of HQ. Like, what is that ice? He doesn't know whether it would stop him or not, and with very few things to punish runners early game aside from that, the Neural Katana, I think just running here is a better play, and he saves that card for later on. He will reveal a Corporate Troubleshooter though, and I would definitely like to see him trash it. There's no need to let a trap live. Just too much worry later on. Sure enough, he will trash it. This is the right call. He's still got enough money to lay down that Armitage and even get some. He has a click left to get some cash off of it. So I think that will probably be his next play. Instead he will use the Code Cracker to see what that ice is in front of our HQ. So this is actually pretty interesting. I really like expose effects on ice. I think knowing what's there really lets you prepare for the future, and the biggest thing that the runner is scared of is always, what ice am I about to face check? And to a lesser extent, I think it's the traps. Like, what is that double advance card in the server? But early game, it's the ice. Like, you want to know what you're going up against. What do I need to search for? Do I need my barrier breaker? Do I need my sentry breaker? Do I need my code gate breaker? Information is everything as the runner, because as you know, the Corp plays everything face down. So as you shift that balance into the runner's favor, it becomes easier and easier for them to get where they want to go. But knowing what it is and breaking past it are two separate things. So now he knows it's an Eli, and he can click through it if he really wants to. With his last click, he's got 1 credit left. He might opt to expose something else, but I'd like to see the Armitage come down so that next turn he can have a good economic option. Instead he'll draw, and he'll draw into his sneak door. Here's where having that Ichi on archives really pays off. But having the Ichi on R&D means that the runner didn't run R&D this turn. So that's definitely good too. Seems like they're having a couple interface issues. I'm sure they'll work it out shortly. There they go. And the Corp draws it to a Janus. This doesn't do a whole lot for him. He might opt to throw this down on the archives. But I think at this point, with no agendas in hand, the threat of Sneak Door isn't too great, and getting extra money is always nice. Alternatively, you could draw, and I definitely like drawing as well. A lot of people think that drawing as the corporation or spending clicks to draw is a bad thing, but with that few cards in hand, you need options, and the Adonis is a good option here. He might try to bluff it, putting it down in that remote where the Janus is protecting. But with the runner having only 1 credit, it's actually not a bad play. He can't trash it unless he does something crazy. Now, unbeknownst to him, our runner actually could get through to it, but it seems like he's going to lay it down unprotected. This is a bit scary. I would rather put it behind that ice. 'Cause now you're saying, okay, come at me. If you want to see what it is, I'll let you do it. Whereas if it was behind the ice, there's still that element of surprise. Furthermore, Adonis pays out over a short period of time, and so that Janus might actually be put to use once it's all paid off. The way things are right now, if he reses it, there's a real strong chance that our runner is just going to trash it right away, unless our corp draws into some end the run ice. And it seems like they're continuing to have a couple interface problems. Hopefully they'll resolve it. So our runner wakes up, and now he's going to run HQ. I think this is the right choice. Make him res that Eli. If he wants, he can click through it. He doesn't have to. Currently, though, our runner is feeling a little poor. And so effectively here, he's gaining 2 credits to look at a card in HQ if he clicks through it. 3 clicks for 2 credits and an access. It's not terrible, not great, but not terrible. And when you're needing the money, as Gabe, this is actually a pretty good idea. It's hard to find credits sometimes, and he will decide to click through it. And that said, he's got an Armitage in hand, so if he's just wanting the money, he can choose to lay that down. But clearly he thinks there's something in hand. And it seems like they're having a couple issues. But I'm sure they'll get it worked out. They'll just reset slightly, and then he'll run. There he goes, and he will access. So I've got to feel that this is mostly for money. With the actions that the Corp took last turn, he did the mandatory draw and then he drew once, took a credit, and then laid down a card. Probably did not draw into an agenda if you're going to do something like that. And if he did, well then it's the card on the table right now. That said, he's got a click left, so he might just go after that card anyway. And at this point, if he does, he actually has enough money to trash it. Running R&D here would also be pretty strong. Now that said, our Corp has 3 credits left, and in a Stronger Together deck, Victor is a very real possibility. Our runner will instead opt to draw with his last click, and he sees another Forged Activation Orders. I'd like to see him use one of those next turn. Our Corp starts his turn, draws into a Heimdall, but does not res his Adonis. I think this is the right choice. At this point, because the Adonis is unprotected, it's just going to get trashed, and he won't have made his money back. Furthermore, putting it out there leaves it really open to bank jobs. And although bank job is not a super common card these days, it's still good. A lot of criminals opt to use cards that are less conditional, but that said, if you do manage to pull it off, it's a great swing in credits, and it's just another economic option. Let's see what our Corp will do. It's got a lot of big ice and not a lot of money. He could take a bunch of credits and then next turn res the Adonis and put the Heimdall over it, or potentially draw into something a bit more manageable like a wall of static. Either way, not resing it now I think is the right choice. Just a little downtime while our corp mulls over what he wants to do. And at the end of the day he will take 3 credits. I think that's probably the best thing he could have done. So runner's in a bit of a strong spot right now. The question is, where does he go next? He's got a Sneak Door in hand, he's got Armitage in hand, 2 Forged, and a Femme. He's got great options all around. He's going to opt to run HQ and click through Eli again. This is the problem with Bioroids, is that early game they don't stop the runner if you want them to be stopped. It was his best option putting the Eli in HQ. It's slowing the runner down, but it's not stopping him. Fortunately, he's got no agendas in hand, so that's not an issue. But the information hurts, and the credits that Gabe gets out of it makes it a much better choice. Normally this would be a horribly inefficient 3 clicks to get 1 access on HQ. He sees the Janus, which he saw last turn, so no new information. This is good news for the Corp. And now he will use the code cracker to see what that card is. Excuse me. He sees it's an Adonis, but he can't do anything about it because it's his last click. So now the question is, will the Corp res that Adonis? Does he think he can draw into some cheap end to run ice? He's going to go for it, and based on his comments, it sounds like he wished he'd done it last turn. He draws into an Eve. With the way that... so, these economic assets are really good, I like Eve a lot. It costs a lot to trash, and sometimes it's worth it to throw it down there, res it, and let it get trashed. Even if you don't make your money back on the Eve, it's still a lot of money for the runner to get rid of it. And if they don't have a reliable source of economy, like Magnum Opus, for example, or Daily Cast and Armitage comboed together, then it's actually quite a setback to lose 5 credits like that. And the more money that you have over the runner, the better it is. So he's going to opt to put the Heimdall in front of the Adonis and take 2 credits. Definitely like this. The only way that Gabe is getting in is if he runs that first click, and he really hasn't shown an inclination to do that so far. However, at this point, he's only got a Lemuria Codecracker down. He's got 4 credits, so he can get rid of the Adonis. He's really got all the reason in the world to run that first click. And then if you res that Heimdall, he can just click through it. The It's always important to think of your board state when you are... and so this is actually a little unfortunate. He's going to use forged activation orders on the Heimdall. Something that really, you know, the face checking that ice would have been better, because now if he runs, he's got to take a brain damage if he wants to get through. Corp is down though to 0 credits, so that R&D ice is nothing. It's wide open. Unless he wants to trash that Adonis, he needs to go for R&D right now. In this situation, just running into that ice head first would have got him through with no negative effects and forced the Corp to res it, leaving him to use that forged activation orders on a different piece of ice on another turn. With nothing on the board, no programs, no resources, and only a piece of hardware, face checking into ice is really not a problem. Even that neural katana that is often so scary, you know, if you can afford to take the hit, and it's worth it. He's going to instead opt to run HQ again and click through the Eli. He's spending a lot of time attacking HQ, which, as Gabe, you kind of want to do, but it's costing him a lot, and he's got a sneak door in hand. So I gotta think that using that sneak door would be better. Of course, he didn't have the money for it because he used the Armitage, or he used the forged activation. But he's been sitting on that Armitage for a long time too. I think our runner is moving a bit too slow for the Corp here, and seeing that Eve campaign, I wouldn't want him to trash it here. Sure enough, he doesn't. But now that Adonis has paid for itself, and behind that Heimdall, I'd really like to see him let that Adonis tick down, and then put either another Adonis behind that Heimdall, or put the Eve down. So our Corp draws into a toll booth, and that's pretty strong. That's really the bane of criminals' existence, unless they can get some good Crescentis or emergency shutdown action going. It's so tough to get through toll booth, but it should be noted that Gordian Blade and Peacock, the in-faction code gate breaker, both do just the same on toll booth. 7 credits for either one, so Peacock actually performs pretty well in this situation. We still don't know what breakers our criminal is running, because we've only seen Fem before, or so far. But you gotta think that there's gonna be some out-of-faction stuff in there. Maybe a Yogg, maybe a Gordian. I'd like to see our Corp preemptively ice up archives. Always a good thing to ice archives, no matter what faction you're playing against. Against Anarch, you gotta worry about retrieval run, and if it's noise, then you gotta worry about that. Criminal, sneak door is always a threat. Shaper, you know, they might not have anything in faction to really punish archives, but there's plenty of out-of-faction stuff to do it, and Shapers, they can take it. Even just the Data Sucker is enough of a reason to protect archives. It's a very strong card. You just can't let someone get free Data Sucker tokens. You gotta make them work for it. Our Corp player will opt to take 3 credits and pass the turn back. Right here, I'd like to see that sneak door come down, start putting it to good use. Our runner is instead going to opt to run on HQ. He'll click through Eli again, and I just don't understand why he's not using Sneak Door. Is he waiting for the right moment to play that Sneak Door? I mean, I think this moment is really now. It frees him up to have 2 extra clicks on his turn to draw with, to put down the Armitage, to gain money with. Spending clicks to break that Eli, not so useful. And he sees the Eve he saw last turn, so not any new information. He'll draw with his last click, and he gets another inside job. Corp starts turn and draws into a Victor. I think a Tollbooth Victor server is the best thing you can do for agenda protection at this point. Tough to get through and relatively cheap compared to other options he's got. I'd like to see him probably just take some money this turn, lay down that Eve next turn, and lay down the Tollbooth and the Victor. He still needs to think about icing up archives, but at the moment, he's not feeling any threats. Let's see where our Corp player goes with this. A lot of downtime here, and I wonder what our Corp is mulling over. I'd like to see him get that Eve out eventually, but he's got a rezzed Heimdall, so better to put it behind that. And he's going to put the Victor on top of Eli. It's helpful, but he doesn't know that there's a sneak door in the runner's hands. So this, if anything, this is the signal for that sneak door to come down. So our runner will opt to use the Forged on that HQ ice, and it's a Victor. So now he can't just click through. And Victor, with the Hospiroid stronger together, is actually quite a nuisance. Yogg just doesn't break it anymore unless you get some support. So Sneak Door is the way to go. But now at least he knows what he's facing if he tries to account siphon later. And now our runner is going to be running R&D. There's a Ichi there, but it's not really worth it for our Corp player to res it because the trash program subroutines won't be useful, and the tag it's only trace 1, easy to pay for. This is something our runner should have done a long time ago, I feel. Lucky for him, there haven't been any agendas so far, so he's actually got a decent shot at snagging an agenda here. He accesses, but he doesn't get an agenda. That's unfortunate. With 2 clicks left, I wonder what he's going to do. He could draw, or he could finally, play one of his programs. He'll draw into another Fem. At this point, I'd kind of like to see the Armitage come down. And sure enough. And he passes the turn back. And let's see what our court player will draw that our runner saw. A Wall of Static. That's pretty nice right now. So he's going to lay down the Eve, and he's going to put it behind Heimdall. Definitely like this. That Heimdall is going to be his economic remote this game. And that Janus just might be his agenda remotes. If he can get that Wall of Static in the outermost position on that server, that inside job threat is much reduced. Let's see how our runner goes from here. He's got 5 credits, so Sneak Door is still an option. With an Armitage down and a Fem in hand, I'd definitely like to see him get some money so that he can play the Fem at the right moment. Trademark. But drawing to see other options too is not a bad thing. And here it comes. Plays the Sneak Door, and usually you want to just Sneak Door 3 times. At this point, though, I really just do it for the money, because there haven't been any agendas. He's run HQ several times and hasn't seen anything. There's probably not an agenda in HQ, and he doesn't know it, but there actually isn't one. So he sees a Biotic Labor, and so that's some new information. If he's got a good memory, he'll know that there's a Wall of Static, a Janus, and a Biotic Labor in hand. The only card he hasn't seen is that Toll Booth. So then the question you gotta ask yourself as the runner is that one card out of the 4 in his hand the agenda I just keep missing? But he's gonna use the Code Cracker, and this is something that many people probably didn't think of when they play a Lemuria Code Cracker, is that Sneak Door works, just like with Emergency Shutdown. It's a successful run on HQ. And so he's going to know that, hey, it's that Eve campaign I saw earlier. And now if he runs on R&D, it's going to be disaster. Instead, he's going to Sneak Door, so he's going to go for it, and unfortunately he won't be rewarded. Without the Desperado out, this is only going to give him some more information. Hopefully he will see the Toll Booth, and he will know that all 4 cards in HQ are not agendas. He wasn't able to run R&D this turn. He sees the Biotic Labor again, so there you have it. He sees the same card twice. The good thing for our corp is that there doesn't seem many breakers down, so that Wall of Static is actually looking pretty good. But without some other defense, inside job threat is just way too scary. Reses the Eve and draws into a priority requisition. At this point, he needs to protect his hand. The Wall of Static is looking real good on the archives right now. The only problem with Wall of Static is that it works early, but then later on, Corroder breaks it for 2. And Gabe gains 2 from a successful HQ run. So he'll get in for effectively free so long as he's got the 2 to pay up front. A long-term investment would be to lay down that toll booth on archives, and that wouldn't be a bad call. Unfortunately, our runner only has 2 credits at the moment, so if he does lay down the toll booth, then he wouldn't be able to pay if our runner face checks. Our runner has been really averse to face checking ice this game, so I don't think that would come. But he's going to opt for the more economical play and put the wall of static down. Then he will lay down the toll booth onto the Janus server, so that's an expensive one. I don't like this. How is he going to pay for either one of those at this point? Unfortunately, he sets his clicks to 0 instead of credits -1. I hope he catches that. If not, I will kindly remind him. Finally, our corp is going to install the priority requisition into the server where he can only res the toll booth. This is kind of scary. But yeah, as I was saying before, our runner is just really not into face checking ice this game. And now that he's got a sneak door, it's even more dangerous. 2 pieces of ice there, and he doesn't know what they are. So he's going to want to run HQ, and he will just go for it with the sneak door. A wall of static is going to stop him cold here. But he chooses not to res it, and so now that inside job is going to do some serious work. If he exposes that card and sees the priority requisition, he can just walk right in, assuming he's willing to take the chance. And it could be that those are 2 ice walls. But, you know, sometimes you just gotta go for it, and so we'll see if he does. I expect him to expose that card right now, since that's been his MO for this game so far. And that's the scary thing about the runner. It's like that could just be a pop-up window in an ice wall, and then you're stuck. You're out your inside job, you're out 2 credits, you got nothing to show for it. But in this case, it would be absolutely worth it. And yeah, this game is going a bit slow, guys, but it's a common thing with beginning runners, I feel. There's a lot of hidden information, and you really, you never know what the right course of action is. So he's going to opt to take 2 credits off of Armitage and then draw a card. I'm really surprised that he didn't try to expose that card into the remote. It's kind of been what he's doing so far. He draws into the account siphon, and at this point it's not going to do him a lot of good. He needs a breaker to get into HQ. I'll have to just take some more money. So now our core player's got to be breathing a sigh of relief. But he's still got to score that priority requisition, and that's at least 2 turns. We'll see how much he decides to advance here, or even if he decides to advance at all. He could potentially just wait until he draws another biotic labor, but at that point it's really expensive. He will go 2 advances, and I think this is enough. He's got enough money to res the toll booth. He's probably thinking that that's good enough. He'll need to take a credit here, though, because otherwise, if he reses the toll booth, the next turn the Eve will pay out 2, and he won't have enough. A lot of people forget to factor in the cost of advancing cards. It's honestly not cheap. You've got to res that ice to protect the server, and you've got to pay to score the agenda. It's been a sticking point for me in the past where, boy, I sure wish I could res that ice and score the agenda. I just don't have the money. He's going to opt to lay down the Eve campaign. So now he's in a bit of a bind. If the runner does just face check that server, sure, you can res that toll booth, and he'll hit him for 3 credits, but then he can inside job in because he knows that with 0 credits that second piece of ice can't be resed, and then he can't even res the Eve campaign on the next turn. It would be a perfect storm for our runner. So, he hits Armitage, and now he's got enough to pay for the Fem. Unfortunately, he just doesn't know which target to go after. If he Fems the wrong one, he's in trouble. But in a case like this, with an inside job in hand, you always want to Fem the second ice, because the inside job will get you past the first one. And in general, people know that Fem is an issue, and they'll put, or rather inside job is an issue, and they'll put the strong ice on the innermost portion and the weak ice on the outermost. So this Fem will neutralize Janus, but even with the Fem on the Janus, it's still 4 credits to get through, which is expensive, nowhere near as prohibitive as it would be normally. But he lays down the Fem, and he hits Armitage, and now he's going to inside job, and this is exactly what the Corp did not want to have happen. He really shouldn't res any ice. It's not worth it. He's going to lose the agenda, but at least he'll have the Eve campaign going. And so based on the way that our runner drew his arrows, I think he's approaching inside job the wrong way. Inside job bypasses the first ice you encounter per turn, and you don't encounter unresed ice, so he doesn't automatically move to that second ice. In fact, if no ice is resed, he never encounters an ice, and inside job gets him nothing. Gabe successfully runs the server, and now he's got to ask himself, is that a trap? It had no advancement counters on it last turn, and now he's having second thoughts. No res all the way through, enough credits to pay for that aggressive secretary, the June bug, or really anything else. He's got to think long and hard. Does he want to access? If you use the inside job, I think you really just need to go for it. You've already committed. You might as well. Of course, it is his option, and we'll see what he decides to do. He will decide to access, and this is the right choice. And that's a general rule of thumb. Like, you need to decide whether you're going to access the card in there before you spend resources like Inside Job. If you're, and the Femme Fatale for that matter, you Femme on that ice, you Inside Job in, and then at the last moment jack out, that doesn't make any sense. If you're going to go through all those resources, you have to use it. And sure enough, by their comments, you can see that he might have been convinced that was an ambush, but he'd spent so much to get into that server that really you had to go for it. And he ends his turn. That was quite profitable for our runner. He's neutralized that server, at least one piece of ice on that server, but now he's used another Inside Job, so there's only one left in his deck, and he saw both of those Inside Jobs in the top 10 cards. The third one might be a long way away, and so now that toll booth is looking really good. Our corp forgot to res the Eve, which is unfortunate. You want to get that paying out as soon as possible. And he drew into another wall of static. So honestly, at this point, you can put that wall of static in front of the toll booth while you trash the Janus, so you pay only one for the install, and that server is looking good. With one thing that is always important is to vary the types of ice you have on a server. So with a code gate and a wall of static, you force them to have two different types of breakers out, and with only the Femme out at the moment, it's two breakers they don't have on the board. And furthermore, with that sneak door and the Femme out, that's 3 memory of his current 4 memory cap, meaning he can't get both of them down. Not until he gets the Desperado out, or some other memory unit. Instead, he will opt to take 3 credits and pass the turn back. So our runner's got some breathing room, so he'll draw, and he draws into a Cortez chip. That's nice. I think it's an underrated card. It's pretty good. It's, if nothing else, it can serve as a no-res for this turn equipment. Because Corp not likely to want to res it, paying an extra 2, but sometimes they will, and anything that costs the Corp more money is good in a runner's book. We'll draw into another sneak door as well, and then clear off Armitage. Our Corp fails to res the Eve again, but he draws a Vitruvius. And I'd really like to see him put that wall of static down in front of the toll booth and just score Vitruvius normally. He's not in a position where the Biotic Labor fast advance is really necessary. It costs quite a lot. Although resing the ice to protect it might cost more, that's a permanent investment. At the end of the day, though, he will opt to Biotic Labor and fast advance that Vitruvius out. So 2 points on the board for our Corp player. Now the question is, where does our runner want to go? HQ probably has no agendas, seeing as he just pulled a fast advance combo with the Biotic Labor. R&D seems like the best option. That Ichi there can be clicked through, because Fem really doesn't deal with Ichi very well. Ideally, he can put down that Cortez chip and then use it on the ice on R&D and then run there. He's got enough credits to res it, even with the Cortez chip on it. But as I was saying before, every money or every credit spent is a good credit as far as the runner is concerned. You want to make the corp spend as much as possible and then hopefully de-res that ice. But our runner draws and sees his third inside job, and that is just phenomenal. I've had games where in the first 30 cards of my deck I didn't see my first account siphon as the criminal runner. And here he's seen all three of his inside jobs very early on. This will make him very aggressive if he chooses to do so. Now, where will our runner go next? And he will sneak door. I think this is the right call. I would have liked to see him sneak door on the first click, just in case. But second click is not as bad. You can double click through most of the most dangerous things, like Ichi 1.0. And here the question is, does the corp want to res that wall with static? It will stop him. He'll choose not to. I think it's actually worth it to res it, because what you're giving the runner here is a click for 2 credits and an access. And so if you think about it, you can pay 3 on that wall of static and prevent the runner from gaining 2. And that's a trade that's really worth it if you ask me. And it's permanent. Once you pay, you don't need to worry about that wall of static ever again. It'll always be there. There's no barrier breaker in sight, and there may or may not be one coming. Now he's opened himself up to expose effects, to emergency shutdown. It's really a dangerous spot to be in, the successful run on HQ in one turn. So now he will run on the remote. He's not afraid of it like he was before, where he used the Lemuria Codecracker. And he's going to see that it is another Eve. He's probably going to wonder why that hasn't been ticking before. He will opt to trash it. That's interesting. So, in the end, our corp is going to pay off from that little gambit. He didn't pay to res it. He made the runner pay 5 to trash it. And now our runner has got only 2 credits and no real economic option on the board. He's going to have to click for credits at this point. I'd like to see him put down the Cortez chip, and sure enough he will. This opens up his hand a little and allows him to draw freely next turn. Our corp draws into a Victor. And Victor is pretty good right here. You can click through it, but it's a strong little piece of ice for only 3 credits. That said, he doesn't need to do a whole lot at the moment, so he'll just gain 3. Gabe will draw. He'll see another Codecracker. That's a dead draw. I'd gotta wonder, like, where does our runner want to go from here? He hasn't attacked R&D except for that one time. He might as well use that sneak door again. There's really no reason not to. He didn't res it last time when he had 9 credits. Why not do it this time? Sneak Door gaining 2 credits and an access is a great deal, assuming he doesn't get locked out, which at this point I really would like to see our Corp player res that ice. So yeah, he's going to Sneak Door. I'd like to see that wall static come up. He might be thinking to himself, I've got no agendas in hand, I don't need to res this ice. He can't get anything out of it. But he can. He's Gabe. He's going to get 2 credits. And he opens himself up for shutdowns and other such things. So I think he makes the right call here. He's got the money, might as well res it. Ends the run, and now our runner's got to be feeling a little miffed. He can't get in through archives, he can't get in through HQ. Does he go for R&D at this point? I hope he doesn't, because running on this click here means that he'll only be able to click through one of those trash programs on the Ichi, and he'll lose something critical. And at this point, killing the Fem is a much juicier option than the Sneak Door. The Sneak Door is not getting him anywhere. But we'll see what our runner decides to do. At this point, yep, he's going to do it. He's going to run R&D. So I would definitely like to see him at least use the Cortez chip here. And it's too late, and Ichi comes up. So at this point, he's going to get a program for sure. The question is, does he want to let him get both programs? Sneak Door's not doing a whole lot for him. It's kind of just eating up memory. Letting the Corp trash it saves him a click and lets him have other options going forward. Alternatively, he could click through the trace. And at this point, if he doesn't click through the trace, I would like for the Corp to spend the money to pump the trace to deal the damage. Brain damage is nice, and you just never know like what kind of card you'll hit with damage. And sometimes it can be critical. It's the basis of Jinteki, after all, is that small damage that just adds up over the game. Sometimes that damage hits a really important card. Yep, and I definitely like this play by our runner. He's going to click through the trace and allow his programs to be trashed. He knew he couldn't save the Fem, which was the most likely target. And with that wall of static there that's been rezzed, he made the Corp pay for it. The Sneak Door's not doing a whole lot for him. Furthermore, he's got another Sneak Door in hand, so if he ever needs to get back through archives, he's got the option later on. This way, he saves himself from damage, and he frees up memory. Furthermore, he's got no programs left, so now he can just look at R&D every turn for 1 click, or 2 clicks rather. It'd be more efficient if he had Desperado, but he chooses to jack out, and I think this is a mistake. Yeah, it seems like it. Probably just hit the wrong button, got a little caught up, and forgot to access. And we'll see if Dread Pirate's going to let him activate. But nope, we'll just move on. And this is just, the name of the game. If you don't take an action, then it's really on you. Because the Corp, they can't play your game for you. And the runner is perfectly valid in jacking out there. There are a lot of reasons why you might want to jack out there, especially against, something like a snare. And Hospiroid, of course, that's less likely. And the snare wouldn't kill him, but it might open up to a Scorch. You just never know what these corporations are running. But Moose decides he really would like to see that card, and Dread Pirate's going to be a good guy and show it to him. It wasn't an agenda, and it's being that it's a shipment, he doesn't get a whole lot of information from seeing it, but still, good to know. I disagree with that statement, though. I think this plugin for Octagon is really well done, and usually it works just fine. I think most mistakes in the interface are user error, but that's just me. So, Corp just decided to take some money. Eve is ticking down, and you gotta wonder which server he's gonna use. Runner draws into a sure gamble, and doesn't have enough money to play it right at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if he triple clicks credits and just discards that code cracker. It's not doing a whole lot for him. Of the cards in his hand, that's easily the most expendable. Sure enough, that's what he will do. So our corpse got 9 credits, now 11, draws into a hedge fund. That's nice. He really wants to see an agenda here. He's got 29 cards left in his deck. There's only been 2 agendas played so far. That means they're all just sitting in R&D. He's got a decent board state, enough credits to res that toll booth, enough credits to res the Janus for that matter. But really, Janus doesn't stop the runner, it only damages them. And so you really want to score the agendas right. Changing up the server, I think, would be better. Right now, the wall of static as the innermost and the victor as the outermost is actually a pretty strong server. And setting that up for a potential agenda draw right now would be a great idea. He's going to opt to draw, and I think this is good. He's probably digging for an agenda. Needs to score something. Sees another Eli, and it's another great card. Now it's the Eli and Victor that would make a great combo. But again, the inside job is just really effective. So you want something that can't be broken with clicks as the innermost piece of ice on the server. With that shipment from Mirror Morph in hand, he can clear out this hand pretty quickly. And even if he does draw an agenda next turn, the Mirror Morph will allow him to put down 2 pieces of ice and the agenda at the same time, allowing him to do that wonderful install advance. And it seems like we're going to run into time issues. So, in a normal tournament setting, you have 65 minutes to play 2 matches, and we've been going quite long here. It's a anticlimactic finish, but that's just the way it's going to go. So the way to deal with this is, honestly, you just got to play faster. There's been a lot of downtime in this game for people just been mulling over actions, thinking about what to do. The only way that you can solve that problem, though, is to become more experienced, and so that's why we're here for this tournament. So the more you learn, the more you play, the quicker you'll get, and sometimes the game just takes time anyway. There's a lot of important actions to think about, a lot of different options that are available. And so this game will end with 3 agendas scored, or 3 points scored for the runner and 2 for the corp. Oh well. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see y'all next time.